Welcome to another episode of Hemp Barons. I'm Dan Humiston, and today's Hemp Baron, an attorney by trade and an entrepreneur by birth, has been the driving force behind North Carolina's emergence back into the hemp industry. Building off the state's rich hemp heritage, his vertically integrated hemp company is leading the state by example out of prohibition. Let's join Joy's conversation with Bob Crumley from Founders Hemp.
Well, Bob, thank you so much for being with us on Hemp Barons today.
Thank you, Joy, for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's so great to have a hero among us. I don't know if you recall, I met you and your beautiful wife at an Hemp Industries Association conference some time ago at the back of the bus during a farm tour. I think I was with Andrea Herman and Jace Calloway and his wife, Anita Hemela from Finola. Do you remember that?
I do remember that trip. That was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
So much fun. And you have been moving and shaking and leading the way in the nation and most certainly in North Carolina since then. And before we get into Founders Hemp, which has many brands here, everything from grain, extracts, your innovative agri products, which I think is fantastic, and the services that you provide, the activism, really you are there's no real getting into hemp and being a leader in the hemp industry unless you're going to be an advocate. They go hand in hand. So by default, they're advocates. But you, by trade, before getting into hemp, you were an attorney. Am I right?
Yes, still am a lawyer by training, an entrepreneur by birth. But yeah, I practiced and had a law firm for a number of years before I got into the hemp industry.
And boy, does that tee us up for the hemp revolution. I was raised by an attorney, worked with attorneys most of my adult life in hemp and in compliance and complex civil litigation. And you have used your lawyering skills to such a fantastic degree on behalf of the hemp plant. And let me ask you this. Before the 2018 Farm Bill, when, of course, thank goodness we got the words, including the seeds thereof, included in the definition of hemp. And as you're very familiar, in the Consolidated Appropriations Act a couple of years ago, we were also able to get the seeds of hemp at least protected from the use of federal funds or Department of Justice funds. But you, sir, had a situation where you were trying to get, under the 2014 Farm Bill, seeds for extracts sent from Kentucky to North Carolina. And tell us a little bit about what happened as you tried to get those seeds. Again, this is a few years back now, or 2017. Tell us a little bit about that story, Bob.
Well, we were interested in not just seeds, but we're also interested in live plants, or as in our industry, we call them clones, of course. And so we were looking at getting that because we needed to plant. And the DEA was giving North Carolina a hard time, as they gave a lot of states a hard time. We had tried multiple meetings to get multiple meetings with them and just were not successful. And so I went to the North Carolina Industrial Hemp Commission, which is the ruling regulatory body, and I suggested that they join me and my company in a lawsuit against the DEA for the DEA's position. And they voted to join us in the lawsuit. But before that lawsuit could get filed, the Attorney General of North Carolina issued an opinion, or one of their associate attorneys actually issued the opinion that gave us, said that we had the right to take product across state lines. We could haul live plants, seeds across state lines, that the Farm Bill specifically allowed that to happen. And with that in our hand, within 24 hours of that, getting that document in our hand, we actually shipped about 4,000 live plants from Kentucky to North Carolina. We shipped seeds from Colorado into North Carolina. And we actually invited the media to come out. We didn't try to hide from anybody. We invited the media to come out and actually had live media there when the truck arrived with it. Although I will tell you a funny story. It took the driver a whole lot longer to get back than it took him to get out there. And I said, how come it took you so much longer to get back? He said, because with a truck full of hemp, I drove 55 miles an hour coming back. I didn't speed at all. So, but we got the plants
better believe it.
Yeah. So it was, it was a tough time. I mean, with the DEA, and but now, of course, the 2018 federal Farm Bill makes it very clear the DEA is not in our wheelhouse anymore. The the USDA and the FDA, and of course, then the North Carolina Department of Ag as well. They're the regulatory bodies, not the DEA.
Indeed. No, they are in our rear view mirror, as I love to say. And as I warned everybody, or at least tried to inform everybody, as soon as we get rid of the DEA, the FDA will be sitting there waiting for us, and they are. And we won't spend too much time in this show talking about, of course, they claim to be working diligently on trying to create a regulatory framework for hemp extracts as supplements and is to be added in food and beverages. And that's a pretty good segue into Founders Hemp. So when did Founders Hemp come along? When did you decide to found, as it were, Founders Hemp?
Yeah, we actually set the company up, golly, I think it was in 2015, before the statute in North Carolina passed. And, we obviously at that point in time, the banks were really skittish. So actually the corporate name of our company was Innovative Business Growth, LLC, because my banker told me if they had the word hemp in it, he couldn't open up an account. So we opened up the account as Innovative Business Growth, LLC. We're DBA Founders Hemp. But since then, of course, that's not an issue for us. We've got full banking here in North Carolina, and very, very happy about that. But we decided to stand up the company, and we knew that we had to be vertically integrated simply because there is no commodity supply of hemp out there. And we wanted to be able to make sure that our customers had the genetics that we wanted them to have, as opposed to just buying anything off the street, as it were. And so we started out with growing our own hemp, processing it, and of course, then retail or wholesale sales all the way to the retail stores.
No, fantastic. And as a super quick aside, because there's so much that we like to inform our listeners of, when you say you have banking in North Carolina, do you mean you also have merchant account services in North Carolina? Or go ahead.
We were the first hemp company in the United States, to my knowledge, to have a tier 1 bank credit card processing. And we also have lines of credit with tier 1 level banks in the United States. And so I think, I think there have been a couple of problems, obviously, with the hemp industry and merchant processing. Some of it, quite frankly, has been self-inflicted. There were a lot of people out there doing some crazy things, and it made banks and the credit card processors very nervous. Some of the folks that were involved early on in our industry may have come directly out of the marijuana industry, and there were a lot of banks that were concerned that it may have hemp in the name, but they would be selling marijuana out the back door. And the banks were just afraid of that. They were afraid of inadvertently violating the BSA or the money laundering issues. And I think that's played a big role with our company, because my first job out of law school, I was in-house counsel for a bank, actually a savings and loan. And people in the industry have known me. They've known my career path. And I think that helped us in large part. But yeah, we have wholesale credit card processing, we have retail credit card processing, and we have online credit card processing with a tier 1 bank.
Indeed. And for what it's worth, really, because we're so engrossed, Hemp Industries Association, and for many other reasons, I have to be so engrossed in what's happening with merchant account processing. And the reality is, as you well know, Elevon, when they saw the writing on the wall that the Farm Bill was going to be passed, they got in around November or so, and everyone got real excited. They started opening up accounts. Merchant account processing can be, like any industry, can be a dirty business. If there's affiliates within affiliates, as you know, selling these things. And I think also what happened is some of the merchant account sellers themselves, who of course want the commissions from the transaction fees, also had a part to play in what happened to hemp, and that they may have brought it on themselves more so than hempsters. I would be more inclined, even to say that by getting in some of these medical and adult use cannabis. And certainly they should have access as well within their own legal states. But I think they let some of them in, and MasterCard found out about it, threatened Elevon, and I don't have to tell you the rest. Thank God.
That's industry self-inflicted. That's what I would say. Not that it's just hemp people doing it, but again, it's some of these folks that were doing the ISOs or the companies that sell credit card merchant processing. And they were doing the wrong thing, and they make a bank nervous. When a bank is sitting there, and I'm not taking the side of the banks, don't get me wrong, but you've got to at least recognize their dilemma, because if they're sitting there inadvertently processing an illegal controlled substance, then they could be accused by the federal government of money laundering, and that's a very bad thing for a bank.
Kiss of death.
So we've got to police our own industry. We've got to police the people who provide services to our industry. And if we don't, then companies like Elevon and other companies will flee because they're afraid, and rightfully so. And so I think that as our industry becomes more professional, as people, I've been working on a speech that I've been asked to give, and the title of my speech is going to be the laws of business apply to cannabis. There's a lot of people that get into the cannabis industry.
God bless you, Bob. That's perfect. God bless you.
They think that the laws of business don't apply to cannabis. And I'm not just talking about laws. I'm not talking about statutes. I'm talking about things such as cash flow for a small business is more important. Yeah, business practice. I mean, I'm seeing hemp companies that are year end to being a hemp company and they don't have a set of books, or they don't keep their books up, or I mean, just stuff that is common sense business, which is why, and sometimes in our industry, we think the laws of business don't apply to us, that we've got a product that is so wonderful that the laws of business don't apply. Look, they apply.
You know,
not only do they apply, they should apply.
Absolutely. And I find that also, and I don't know if that's because we're coming from hysterical prohibition to folks think some unrealistic type of utopia or what's going on, but I find even critical thinking hats seem to come off when it comes to hemp. So you'll be talking to even a critical thinker, and all of a sudden when it comes to hemp or hemp products, whether it's extract, textiles, or even paper, all of a sudden they stop asking critical questions like, gee, did you happen to use a bunch of chemicals on this textile? Go ahead.
Let me give you a great example. I have trained 5 banks in North Carolina. One of them's a national bank. I've trained 5 banks, their compliance officers and stuff on hemp and cannabis to help them get ready for cannabis customers. So occasionally they will call me when they've got a deal presented to them. They don't tell me the company name. They don't tell me the state that it's in. They just say, we've got this kind of structure being presented to us. What do you think? My favorite one recently was a group that wanted to build a processing facility that had the ability to process 10,000 pounds a day. So I said to the banker, I said, let's just do the rough math. If you do the rough math, and if the raw hemp is costing them, let's just say market rate these days about $30, $35 a pound. So let's just say conservatively $30 a pound, and they're processing 10,000 pounds a day. I asked the banker, I said, does this company have the capacity to handle $300,000 a day cash flow before they even think about all their extraction chemicals or other costs? It's like some people in the hemp industry have eaten, I think they watched that movie about the baseball field. You know, if you build it, they will come. And I think some people in the hemp industry have taken the idea, if I build an extraction facility that will produce can process 10,000 pounds a day, by golly, I'll be able to sell 10,000 pounds a day. My response is not necessarily. And so it's just folks need to take a step back. What was it? A former Fed chairman called it irrational exuberance. Take a step back from the irrational exuberance and realize this needs to be a sustainable industry, a sustainable business. We owe that to our customers. We owe this to the people who have maladies that our product is good for. And we need to approach it that way and approach it business-like. And I think we do that at Founders Hemp. And I think, quite frankly, it's one of the reasons why, national banks have responded to us when we ask for lines of credit or processing or whatever the case may be.
No doubt.
So I would encourage your listeners, I would encourage people in our industry, pay attention to the business aspects of your business, not just the floral aspects of your business, not just about the creative aspects of the business, but about the business aspects of the business as well.
Absolutely. And no doubt, as you well know, most small businesses fail, whether you're just selling a widget, and we're not in a widget revolution here. We're in an industrial, agricultural, public health revolution with a plant that has been demonized and we've been socially engineered. So if you're going to have trouble surviving as a small business owner operator selling widgets, believe me, you're going to have trouble in hemp if you're not applying these best business practices.
Right. Breaking the stigma is something that we need to do. And I can't tell you the number of people that I've seen, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, They come to the door of our retail store, they put a hand on the door, and then they look both ways as if they're trying to see if anybody's watching them go in. They still got that little stigma. Now, after they've come into our store and they realize it's not a bad place, it's a healthy place, they lose that stigma. But it's one customer, two customers at a time. If as an industry, we feed the stigma, I mean, I've seen some ads by some of our competitors. They cuddle right up against the marijuana. They cuddle all up against the illegal aspect of it. And I don't think that's good for the industry, because we need to be about breaking that stigma, not embracing that stigma.
Such a fantastic gauntlet to navigate here. And you do such a great job of it at Founders Hemp. And let's talk a little bit about what Founders does. In vertically integrated, are the brands that are on your website all owned? And there are some beautiful ones: Historically Healthy, Historical Remedy, Hemp Symmetry, Howland Hemp, Innovative Agri Products, and Hemp Excellence. Are those all brands that are owned by Founders?
Yes, they're all our brands. We decided early on not to have a monolithic marketing plan, but to rather, as you can see, by having different products. Each one of those products goes to a segment of the market. And so that's the decision we made. There are people out there in the industry who've decided to have a monolithic brand, and they'll put the same brand in a convenience store or a doctor's office. And we don't do that. And so we've segmented brands out based on market.
And some of it with Innovative Agri Products, that is the arm of the company that sells, it looks like, maybe ingredient suppliers as well as genetics, and provides services?
Right. That is our farming entity and also our extraction entity. It sells clones and seedlings to farmers. It also buys hemp. It extracts hemp. And its biggest customer is Founders Hemp. But its biggest customer is not going to be Founders Hemp probably by the end of this year, or for sure not next year. We've got some fairly big contracts with some national companies that we will be selling raw oil into them for. Either we'll provide them a product, they'll do bottling. In some cases, we do bottling for them, white label bottling. So, but that particular company, Innovative Agri Products, does that. It also is very active in the smokable hemp arena, and we have our own brand of smokable hemps and pre-rolls that we sell in our stores, but also into wholesale customers, tobacco shops, other kind of shops, vape shops, whatever.
No, outstanding. And just Founders Hemp, for your growers, do you folks employ any regenerative agricultural techniques, or what is Founders' sort of philosophy around agriculture and soil in terms of field selection and the way that you farm the plant?
Well, one of the things that we make sure that we do with our farmers, we know that this plant is an uptake plant, meaning that if there's heavy metals in the soil, that it can uptake those heavy metals. And so we always like to have our farmers do heavy metal testing on their fields. And if we have a field, heavy metals in and of themselves are not bad, right? They serve useful purposes in the right amounts. But when you are beginning to extract, and if there's heavy metals in the plant and then you extract it, you can get higher levels of heavy metals, and that may not be a good thing. We work with our farmers, test the fields, not just for pH and what fertilizers may be needed, but also heavy metals. We're very careful with that in that regard. We also then test the flower when it comes from the farmer's field to make sure that we have not had an excess uptake of heavy metals or pesticides or herbicides, of course, not yet being permitted on those yet. So we have a very stringent, we're the first hemp company east of the Mississippi River to be GMP certified. And so we have decided as a company that we are on the high quality side of this market. We're not trying to be the low cost, cheap provider. We don't buy foreign isolate or foreign products and mix it with American products. All of our products are grown in the United States, processed in the United States. And so we made a very early commitment in Founders that we were going to be on the upper end of quality, hence our push to become the first GMP certified. And we're well on our way to being ISO certified, we think, perhaps by the end of the year.
And when you say GMP certified, did you have a third-party verifier come in? Because that, as you know, that is where it's at for CBD right now. So fantastic.
Yes, we had a third party. One of the testing companies, came in. We actually had a pre-audit done by another company, and then the auditing company comes in for the full GMP audit. And we were audited under the nutritional supplement standard. So there's real interesting issue going on out there. There's different, obviously different levels of GMP depending on where you write them. And we chose to go with the more difficult nutritional supplement brand or level. And so we're in fact certified GMP. It's really interesting. I was speaking on a panel at the New Orleans Hemp Conference this year. And at the same time that I'm on the panel, literally the same hour that I'm on the panel, we received our GMP certification notice. And so we're real excited about that. We were high-fiving each other at the conference there in New Orleans.
So important, and most of us, as you may be aware, I'm the president of the Hemp Industry Association. And we, of course, like the American Herbal Products Association, one of our coalition partners, have adopted a policy. And you're, of course, Founders is a valuable member of the HIA. Want our members, if you are involved in dietary supplements, then 21 CFR 111 needs to rule your life. If you are involved in food production, then 21 CFR 117 needs to rule your life. And we go right back to where we started, Bob, which is the laws of business apply to your business. So just because the FDA is,
right.
extolling this guidance position that the industry leaders, of course, we strongly disagree with their guidance, that it is a violation of federal law to market CBD as a dietary supplement or a food. The reality is there are regulations around manufacturing dietary supplements and food.
It's so critical in our industry that we need to be concentrating on quality. Look, our detractors are going to use negative quality as a reason to be against our product, not just be against that particular product, but to be against hemp itself. And so when you're in a brand new industry that's coming out of an illegal industry, and now it's legal industry, there's a lot of bullseyes on you, and you need to be concentrated into the quality side. And so we made that commitment internally. Our quality control manager has multiple years in the food industry and came to us, and we're just very, very pleased with the result. And like I said, the next level for us is to ISO 20, I can't remember the levels, 20-some thousand level that we're going for now, and hopefully be there before the end of the year. So that would be very exciting.
So fantastic, so critical. I came on in January also as Elixinol's regulatory officer and industry liaison, and it means everything to be transparent and to just toe the line with quality assurance and safety. And that brings us to a product that, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we took the transparency one step further. When we actually had a pharmaceutical consulting company help design our facility. And one of the things that we did in it was put a viewing conference room above our production facility. So we've actually held, our county's Economic Development Corporation has held a board meeting there. We've held 2 Rotary Club meetings. We held meetings with the local school system with students. They're now looking at some in the community college system, some classes specifically related to hemp processing. So we've got these big, huge, giant picture windows over this big conference room that looks out over our processing facility, so people can actually see and see the cleanliness and the processing that we do. We made a very, very conscious decision in this company to be fully transparent for our customers, but also for the community. So the community doesn't feel that something weird is going on there, that instead they look at it and they go, wow, that's pretty cool. The quality, pretty cool. I mean, when they see our staff in there with white coat jackets on, beard nets, hair nets, gloves, they suddenly go, wow, these are people are not extracting in their bedroom or their bathroom or their kitchen table. This is a real deal here. It's so important for our industry, I believe.
Absolutely. Leading that example. And in fact, it reaches beyond transparency into education and demonstration. So while they're seeing a shining example of how these facilities should be operated, they're also getting their own ideas.
I want to take a quick break to thank you for listening to today's show and to invite you to check out all of our other cannabis podcasts. As the industry's #1 cannabis podcast network, we are constantly adding new shows. So go to MJBulls.com to see our new shows and to become part of the Cannabis Podcast Network.
Something's happening specific to North Carolina right now. So I know that the legislation was crazy this year, and I know that you've been a big proponent of allowing smokable hemp in North Carolina. And that's one issue. The other issue being that now all of a sudden the North Carolina Department of Ag, after, issuing so many licenses, knowing full well these last few years that folks have been growing for hemp extracts, specifically for cannabinoids and specifically for cannabidiol, generally speaking, within that group. And now all of a sudden issuing guidance that North Carolina may not market hemp-derived cannabinoids, hemp-derived CBD specifically, as a dietary supplement or food. Tell us a little bit about A, the smokable hemp issue, and B, this new guidance.
Yeah, it's really funny. I talk about this all the time, whether I'm speaking to bankers or law enforcement or a local Rotary Club, whomever. And I always tell people, I say, in 2017, I believe it was, the FDA issued 16 warning letters, as I recall. I think I'm correct on the number. 16 warning letters to hemp companies. Not one single warning letter did the FDA then or even now did they say, you are marketing CBD, cease and desist immediately. They didn't say you are marketing CBD as a nutritional supplement and you've got nutrition supplement facts on your bottle, cease and desist that immediately. They have not said that. What they have said is, in the supplement facts on your bottle, you say you've got 25 milligrams. We tested it. You've only got 15. Either fix your product or fix your label. Now think about that for a second. On the one hand, the FDA and North Carolina, they send out a missive saying it's illegal to do these products, to put them into food or put them in nutritional supplements. And then on the next sentence, they're saying, but if you do that, here's the best way to make sure that your nutrition facts or your supplement facts are correct. The other thing that they've done on their warning letters is to say, you can't make unfounded claims. And I agree with that. And so when you've got companies out there saying, one company I think had on their website, Stigma, CBD is a cancer cell killer. Well, that's going to drive the FDA crazy every single minute of the day, and it should. And so if you really look at what the FDA and what North Carolina is saying is technically, since the FDA has not issued regulations, technically we're not allowed to sell what we're selling. But the FDA has said...
And I'm just going to interrupt you there. Just because I speak on this all the time as well, obviously. And you're so close. By 2016, there were 14 total warning letters issued. There were 6 issued in 2016, but there had been 8 issued in 2015. Right. So by the end of 2016, we had these 14 letters. And even as it sits today, there's only 23 total letters that have ever been issued by the FDA. But the point here is that this technically is, again, and I'm surprised. I love my brother. You're chopping the wood and carrying the water for the FDA here. And what we say is, no, not technically. Number one, generally, I think the industry, the coalition industry takes issue with the FDA and says, hey, we're not even convinced, first of all, that the approval of Epidiolex actually met the statutory requirements.
I agree with all that. I agree.
Yes, the scope and length of trial and funding and all of those things. And so it sucks that North Carolina is, unlike New York. Now, keep in mind, New York, which is where I live now after 20 years in Seattle, I'm back in New York. And, very highly regulated state, very proud of its regulations and the stamp that comes from agriculture and so on and so forth in New York. But even they say they disagree with the FDA, not for quality assurance. In fact, under the agricultural pilot program here, you have no choice but to process under 21 CFR 111, that you sign an agreement saying that you're going, all of those things. But they said, if you are going to make these products in New York, you can only market them as a dietary supplement, as you well know, no doubt, no food or beverages in New York for CBD, but as a dietary supplement. And then we see North Carolina Department of Ag going the opposite and sort of saying, well, technically you're not allowed to do that. So here in North Carolina, we're not allowing you to do that. So how are you handling it?
Okay, when I say technically, I'm taking the FDA's position. I'm not taking Bob Crumley's position. I'm not taking founder's hemp's position. Okay. So when I say that the FDA says, the FDA is basically winking and nodding at this industry. And they've been winking and nodding at this industry since 2015. They've been saying,
or we surely see a lot more letters.
Yes. Well, you see more letters, but you only see letters as it relates to the quantity of product in that you're stating on your nutrition facts or supplement facts, and you're seeing letters related to unsubstantiated claims. And not once.
No,
I have not seen a single letter that says you can't grow it.
No, I don't mean that. I actually think you misheard me. I said, or we would be seeing more letters. Certainly, I agree with you 100%.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So what's North Carolina? Why is North Carolina doing what it's doing?
And how are you handling it? You're the king of extracts down there. How are you handling it?
Perfect question. North Carolina is doing this because North Carolina has a very special relationship with the FDA. North Carolina Department of Ag actually runs a very large testing facility for the FDA. And North Carolina is not going to take a position that is contra to the FDA's position. That's my opinion. Okay. I've been in meetings with them. I know. Okay. I sat across from in a meeting with the Department of Ag, and the statement was made to me, Bob, we're not going to inspect you guys right now because the FDA has not given us guidance on how to inspect you. And I said, okay, you understand we're not going to stop processing and we're not going to stop selling. And they said, we know, it's okay. So North Carolina is doing exactly what the FDA has done, is they send out these letters saying, okay, since the FDA hasn't issued final regulations, we don't think you can do this, but we're not shutting anybody down. We're not pulling products from shelves. We're not doing any of that kind of stuff. And so, but hey, I'll tell you one thing that I believe, I call this gray area, right? And I believe very strongly, Joy, that this gray area has been very, very good for small businesses to get started. Because had it been very clear, black and white, day one, the big boys would have jumped in and they would have crushed all the mom and pops, all the young companies like mine getting started. What the gray has done for us as an industry, it's allowed us to develop some small to middle-sized companies that the big boys are going to have to play with as when the big boys get to jumping in. It's exactly what happened in the vape industry. The big boys sat on the sidelines for the vape industry for a period of time and then started jumping in once things got a little more secure in that industry. And I think that's going to happen in our industry. So I believe
as you're familiar with the hemp industry, the hemp movement in all of its forms, textiles, building materials, body care was built on the backs of the cottage industry. And it's amazing the light that the as I say, sort of the cracks in the shadow and the light where hemp is able to shine through. And didn't you just hit it on the head that boy, the universe conspires in our favor, if I could get spiritual for a minute there, Bob?
Absolutely. One great example. When a national hamburger chain on 4/20 of this year, April 20th of this year, put a hemp extract barbecue sauce on burgers and sold them for $4.20, as I understand. That was a look to the FDA going, okay, whatever. And what did the FDA do? They didn't do anything. Okay. So I believe, let's take the vape industry for a second. The vape industry was around for what? 14 years before the FDA started doing any significant regulation. Will our industry be around for 14 years before they get around to issuing regulations? I don't know. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. I don't think we will. But I believe very strongly that what we produce in our facility is going to be inspected and regulated pursuant to 111, CFR 111.
Yes.
And so that's when we got the pharmaceutical consulting company to help design our building. We asked them to design it to that standard. When we went and got GMP certified, we were GMP certified under Section 111. And so, again, I agree with what you said a minute ago, Joy. I couldn't have said it better. If you're in the hemp industry and you're making food, push yourself to GMP food. If you're in the nutritional supplement end of it, push yourself to GMP nutritional supplement. Get the quality.
And cosmetics
build the quality
same.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I still want to talk about the smokable hemp aspect before we go, but I just also wanted to give a nod, of course, to the Founders Hemp brand that is skincare when we said cosmetics, because, of course, you've got your grain brand and you've got Hemp Excellence, the body care brand, and your extracts as well. So cosmetics are so important. But let's talk for a minute again, the advocacy with regard to the issue in the North Carolina legislature of smokable hemp versus not allowing it.
Right. There was a few members of the General Assembly who, for various reasons, have a problem with smokable hemp. Primarily, it's law enforcement's creation, I believe. And the North Carolina SBI, State Bureau of Investigation, got involved, sent an email or letter out to all the legislators saying how they could not any longer search people's cars when they smelled or saw what they thought was marijuana because it could be hemp. Look, I just got interviewed earlier today by a TV station on this issue here in North Carolina, and I told them what I'll tell you. Over 2.5 years ago, Joy, I called the North Carolina SBI, the North Carolina ALE, Alcohol Law Enforcement, the North Carolina Police Chiefs Association, and the North Carolina Sheriff's Association, offered myself up to come teach them and help them to get past this issue on smokable hemp and other issues in the cannabis industry. The Sheriff's Association said, we don't need you at our event. Thanks for calling. The SBI and the ALE never called us back. The Police Chiefs Association called us back and allowed me to speak at their event. So later now, 2.5 years have gone by. North Carolina leadership, law enforcement leadership, has done nothing to get a roadside test kits available out there. As an entity, they haven't. So then they send this email letter to all the legislators saying, our law enforcement is getting hurt. We can't tell the difference between hemp and marijuana on the street. And that's not true. Guilford County Sheriff's Department in North Carolina tested a roadside test kit in 2017 and 2018 that was 100% correct on distinguishing between hemp and marijuana. Virginia has now issued drug test kits on the roadside to test the difference between hemp and marijuana. And so we've got law enforcement in North Carolina that are, in my opinion, not giving all the facts to the legislators. It's caused some legislators to be caught in a whipsaw between, do we help farmers and hurt law enforcement? And us as an industry, we've been saying you can help both. We've offered a multitude of things, whether open container provision in an automobile, to assisting the state with getting roadside test kits. I know that supposedly the DEA is coming out with some test kits that will be able to tell the difference between hemp and marijuana. So there's been a big boo-ha-rah-rah. I don't think the statute's going to pass in North Carolina. If it passes and if the governor signs it, ban smokable hemp sometime next year, I don't think the courts will allow that to sustain it. The Farm Bill is very clear. 18 Farm Bill is very clear. States and Indian tribes cannot change the definition of hemp. And if you're going to ban part of the hemp plant because you're saying it is a controlled substance, you have changed the definition, and that is illegal under federal law. So it is somewhat worrisome that our state might try that, but I don't think it's going to ultimately be successful.
It's such a fascinating revolution as we navigate our way through the so many uses of the hemp plant. And you and the North Carolina Industrial Hemp Coalition certainly played a huge part in, and continue to play a huge part in, educating the legislature and seeing how we move forward there. Well, I just thank you so very much for being with us today, Bob, for everything that you do, not only to lead the industry, but just as an advocate, as a champion for the plant, as a champion for common sense, inclusive law and regulation as we steward our way through the reemergence of this versatile, valuable crop. Thank you for everything you do, Bob.
Well, we thank you and the HIA. I mean, the work that you guys have done, the plowing the field that you all did for years and years, has just been so good for us, and to be a part of the HIA as a member. I would tell your listeners, if you're not a member of HIA, join now. We've got to stand together. We've got to work together, and HIA does a fabulous job at that.
Thank you. Well, we've built our coalition partners so much, and that's joinhemp.org. And for Founders Hemp, that's foundershemp.org. And something tells me with conference season coming up, Bob, I'm going to get to see you and your lovely wife again soon.
I'm sure you will. I'll be speaking at the North Carolina Bankers Association meeting in September, and I'm not sure where I'm speaking. There's another speaking engagement sometime after that, but yeah, I'd love to help people not in the hemp industry get educated about hemp too. So I look forward to speaking to the North Carolina bankers soon.
So important, so important. Thank you again, Bob. Have such a great harvest season.
Thank you. All righty. Take care.